Have you ever felt like the responsible one in the family, only to realize that being responsible actually meant being invisible? That was me. 2 daughters, 1 family, 1 medical school dream shared by both of us. I graduated with top honors, juggling night shifts, clinical rotations, and a mountain of debt. My sister? She barely made it through, yet somehow she came out debt-free. And not because she worked harder. No, my parents paid off her student loans in full as a fresh start gift. For me, not even a conversation. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I didn't ask why. Because that wasn't the first betrayal. It was just the loudest. The real punch came days later. During a family dinner, my cousin, thinking it was funny, live-streamed the whole evening. The food, the laughs, and then the whispers. She's brilliant, but so cold. My mother said, a little gratitude wouldn't kill her. My dad added, and the worst? She's a robot, always calculating. Who would even miss her if she left? They didn't know I was watching. They didn't know that while they mocked my silence. I was already planning how loud my exit would be, because this isn't a story of staying quiet. It's a story of what happens when the quiet one finally speaks, not with noise, but with action. So stay with me. Because by the time I finished what I started, my sister had no spa, my parents had no financial support, and I had something they never expected, a platform, a voice, and the final word. In the next 30 minutes, I'll show you how being the strong one is sometimes used to excuse emotional neglect, the power of strategic silence, and when to break it, and how to turn the very labels that tried to break you into your greatest advantage. Ready? Let's begin. I grew up in a household where love was quiet, but favoritism was loud. From an early age, I was the dependable one, the planner, the straight-A student, the child who never asked for anything. My sister, Olivia, was the opposite, charismatic, sensitive, always surrounded by people willing to bail her out, especially my parents. They used to call it balancing the scales. You're the strong one, Mom would say. She needs a little more support. I didn't realize that support meant enabling and strong meant disposable. When Olivia and I both decided to pursue medicine, it felt, for once, like we were on the same path, but the reality couldn't have been more different. I earned scholarships, took extra rotations, and worked part-time as a scribe at the ER to make ends meet. My nights were filled with blood draws and chart notes. My weekends spent prepping for licensing exams. Olivia, well, she floated. Switched specialties 3 times, took leaves of absence, had burnout every other semester. Each time, my parents stepped in, covering rent, paying for tutors, even buying her a brand new laptop after she spilled coffee on the last one. I never said a word. I just kept going. By the time we graduated, I had $190 $90 in student loans. Olivia, maybe half that, until it dropped to 0. How? I found out during a casual brunch after our graduation ceremony. My parents toasted her. To our survivor, Dad said with a proud grin. We're wiping your loans. Sweetie, start fresh. I remember raising my glass with a smile that didn't reach my eyes. No one mentioned me. No offer. No acknowledgement. Just a silent assumption that I'd figure it out. That night, I drove Mom to her dialysis appointment. Her medical bills had stacked up over the years, and I had been covering most of them ever since residency began, quietly, reliably. She fell asleep during treatment. I just sat there, watching her breathe, wondering if she knew, or even cared, what I'd sacrificed to keep everything running. Still, I said nothing. But then came the video. It was supposed to be a fun family gathering, Olivia's idea, a let's celebrate freedom from debt dinner. My cousin Jason live-streamed it for friends on social media, but forgot to turn it off when things got honest. I wasn't there. I was on call that night. But the clip made its way to me anyway. In the video, Mom laughed about how my daughter's too proud to accept help. Dad joked. We raised her to be independent. She just took it a little too literally. And then Olivia, swirling a glass of wine, said, "She's obsessed with control. That's why no one wants to date her." They all laughed. That was the moment something in me cracked. Not from sadness, but clarity. I had spent my entire adult life holding this family up, quietly, without complaint. But the truth was, they didn't love me for who I was. They loved me for what I gave. And once I stopped giving, I knew exactly what would happen. So I made a decision not to confront, not to scream, not to demand justice. That would have given them too much power. Instead, I planned not just for revenge, but for release. And the first thing I did was stop paying for anything that didn't serve me. I didn't make a scene. There was no angry call, no text message, no sobbing confrontation. I simply removed myself. First, I called the clinic billing department and told them I would no longer be responsible for my mother's medical payments. They'd have to go through her insurance and, from now on, direct all correspondence to her, not me. Then I stopped auto-transferring money into the joint account I had with my dad for family emergencies. You'd be surprised how many emergencies involved Olivia's vacations or impulse purchases. And then I blocked them. All of them. No announcement, no drama, just silence. It took 3 days for the first ripple to hit. I was in the OR shadowing a cardiac surgeon when my Apple Watch buzzed. A voicemail from Dad. "Hey, your mom's treatment didn't go through. Must be a billing error. Can you look into it?" I didn't respond. 2 more days passed. Olivia texted, "Hey, genius! You forgot to send rent for Mom's place. She's freaking out. Fix it." Still nothing. Then Mom herself called, left a long message that started warm and ended icy. "I hope everything's okay, but if you're mad about something, just say it. Don't punish us like this. We're family." That word, family, rang hollow, so I gave it 1 more week, 1 full week of complete disengagement. No money, no messages, no presents. And then came the turning point. It was a Tuesday evening when I got a frantic email from my dad. Not a call, not a text, an email. Formal, tense, titled, "We need to talk." In it, he said that Olivia's rent check had bounced, that Mom missed her dialysis because they couldn't afford the out-of-pocket after insurance, that the credit card they used, which, as it turns out, was still linked to my name from years ago, had been declined at a grocery store. The final line was a dagger. "You've made your point. Now can you please start acting like part of this family again?" And that's when I realized something. They weren't reaching out because they missed me. They were reaching out because they missed the money. I was never the daughter. I was the donor. But here's the thing. I wasn't broke. Far from it. I had saved, invested, and built quiet security over the years. While Olivia bragged about brunches and TikTok-worthy vacations, I was building a life, a real one. And now that life had clarity, sharp, cold, and freeing clarity. So I took one final step. I reached out to my attorney, someone I knew from med school who now handled high net worth estate protection. We drew up 2 documents, a complete separation of my financial identity from all family-connected accounts, a cease and desist notice outlining that any further use of my name or credit for financial benefit would be considered fraud. It wasn't revenge. It was respect for myself. But that didn't mean it ended there. Because what I didn't know was that Olivia had one last trick up her sleeve, and it was about to backfire in the most delicious way. 2 weeks after I cut them off, I got a call from Human Resources. At first, I thought it was something benign, paperwork, licensing, maybe an error in payroll, but the woman's voice was strained. "Hi, we received a formal inquiry. Someone claiming to be your mother called and said she was concerned about your mental stability. and that you'd been misusing hospital funds for personal expenses. My stomach didn't drop. It clenched, because I knew exactly where this was coming from. Olivia. That one last trick I had sensed, here it was. She had weaponized the only system I didn't control, my workplace. Apparently, she had left voicemails at the compliance office, suggesting I had paid for personal travel using hospital stipends and purchased luxury handbags on a company credit card. Let me be clear, I never did any of that. But if you say something with enough urgency and pretend it's coming from a place of concern, people will look into it. That's how reputations are ruined. It was her play to get me desperate, maybe force me back into their grip, or simply punish me for not playing my role anymore. But what she didn't realize was that I was ready. See, when you grow up with people like this, people who manipulate with smiles and twist loyalty into obligation, you learn to keep records. Quietly. Always. I had receipts, spreadsheets, texts, email trails. But more than that, I had allies. Dr. Barnes, one of the most respected surgeons in the hospital, had been my mentor for years. When he found out about the inquiry, he didn't hesitate. He walked straight into the boardroom and shut it down with 5 words. "She's the most ethical resident here." Still, I had to sit through the formal review. I was asked about every purchase on my hospital account, every travel stipend I'd submitted. I answered calmly, handed over organized documentation, and smiled when one of the compliance officers said, "Well, it looks like someone was trying to build a false case." Exactly. And now I had my own. Because here's where it gets interesting. During the HR process, I requested a copy of the original complaint file. Legally, I had the right to see what had been submitted under my name. And when I opened the transcript, I froze. There it was. A voicemail from Olivia. She's not well. She had said, "I think she's spiraling, and I'm worried she might do something reckless with patient data." It wasn't just a personal attack. It was criminal defamation. That changed everything. I immediately called my lawyer and asked what our options were. He laid them out. A cease and desist for character assassination, already filed. A civil suit for defamation and emotional damages, possible and strong. But the best part? He discovered that Olivia had filed the report using a work email from the nonprofit where she had just started working as a public outreach coordinator, a job that relied on public trust, funding, and, ironically, ethics. Let's just say that once their board received a copy of the report, along with my legal team's findings, Olivia wasn't in that position much longer. The very lie she crafted to destroy me became the proof of her own unreliability. But I didn't stop there. Not because I was vindictive, but because I had spent years holding my breath, walking on eggshells to keep the family from collapsing, and I needed, for once, to exhale. So I sent one final message, a video message, just 5 minutes long. It opened with a shot of me sitting calmly in my apartment. No makeup, no dramatic lighting, just truth. And I spoke directly to the camera. I paid off over $75 of Mom's medical bills. I helped cover rent for 3 years. I've had a system that saw me as a walking wallet. And when I stopped, you tried to destroy me. Then I paused, breathed. But here's the twist. While you were plotting, I was documenting. While you were laughing at dinners, I was building a life. And the last line? I'm not angry anymore. I'm free. I never got a reply, but I didn't need one. Because sometimes the loudest victory is silence. A month after the compliance hearing cleared my name, I received a certified letter at my door. It was from my parents' attorney. Inside was a formal notice. They were requesting reimbursement for emotional distress, claiming I had slandered the family name by going public with my version of events. No apology, no reflection, just another attempt to flip the narrative, as if they were the victims. At first, I laughed, but then I realized something. They had no idea I was already 3 steps ahead. Remember the video I sent them? I didn't just email it to a few people. I shared it, privately, with every extended relative who had ever commented. You're lucky to have parents who care so much, without knowing what it was like behind closed doors. But I didn't just stop at family. I had volunteered for years at a local mental health advocacy group, sharing insights about caregiver burnout, boundaries, and emotional manipulation. They had always encouraged me to speak, to use my story, so I did. I turned my message into a keynote, not to shame anyone, but to liberate myself, and hopefully others. I spoke at their annual summit. My talk was titled, "When Loyalty is a Cage, Saying No to Emotional Blackmail." And that's when something unexpected happened. People began reaching out. Emails, handwritten letters. Women and men who had spent decades trying to earn their parents' love by sacrificing everything: time, money, identity. And one message stood out. It came from a woman named Claire, a retired probate attorney. She wrote, "I saw your story. I've handled dozens of estate battles and family coercion cases. If your parents are trying to intimidate you legally, I'd be happy to offer advice, free of charge." I called her that night. Claire helped me craft a formal response to the demand letter, not just a rebuttal, but a preemptive strike. We included a timeline of every financial contribution I'd made, complete with receipts, transaction logs, and tax documentation, a log of all voicemail harassment, including Olivia's defamatory complaint, a signed letter from my former HR director, confirming my exoneration, and, this part was poetic, a spreadsheet showing how their emotional support cost me over $90. $7 in missed opportunities, therapy bills, and legal expenses. Claire's note at the bottom: if they wish to pursue this matter in court, we'll be filing a counterclaim for damages and defamation. The letter was never answered. Instead, silence. No more calls, no more threats. And slowly, that silence turned into space, room to breathe, to plan, to rebuild. But the best part? The justice didn't stop at silence. 2 months later, I received another message, this time from my cousin, the same one who had live-streamed that infamous family dinner. His tone was different now. "Hey, I didn't know what they were doing. I just thought it was another loud dinner. But your story opened my eyes. I'm sorry. Truly." He offered to testify on my behalf if things ever escalated again. It wasn't redemption, but it was accountability, and it meant something. Because here's the thing. In families like mine, the betrayal doesn't always come with fists or shouting. It comes wrapped in expectations, guilt trips, twisted definitions of love. But when you start redefining your worth, they lose power. And when you stop playing the role they assigned you, they panic. The turning point wasn't when I fought back in court. It was when I stopped seeking their validation. When I decided they don't get to write my ending, I do, and that's what broke their grip. Not rage, not revenge, just clarity and courage. It's been a year since I last spoke to my parents, not because I hate them, but because I love myself enough now not to beg for love that comes with conditions. I no longer check my phone dreading their guilt trap messages. I no longer hold my breath during holidays, wondering if I'll be invited or just silently erased. Instead, I've built something else, something solid, something real. I took the energy I used to spend chasing their approval and poured it into creating a life on my terms. I finished my fellowship early. I took a job out of state, and with the help of Claire, that incredible attorney who stepped in when I needed someone most, I co-launched a legal mentorship initiative for women in medicine navigating toxic families and financial manipulation. We called it Not Your Wallet, Not Your Worth, because too many women, daughters, wives, even grandmothers, are taught to prove love with money, to stay quiet to keep the peace, to pay and pay and pay until there's nothing left but resentment. But here's the twist I never saw coming. When I stopped giving, I started receiving. New friends showed up, not out of obligation, but care. Colleagues became chosen family. And one night, after a lecture, a woman in her 60s hugged me with tears in her eyes and whispered, "I thought I was the only one. I wasn't, you aren't, and that's why I'm telling you this story. Not because I need pity, but because I want you to know you don't owe anyone access to your peace just because you share DNA. You don't have to keep paying emotionally, financially, spiritually, to earn a love that should have been yours from the start. And walking away, that's not failure. That's freedom. I didn't win because I exposed them. I won because I found myself, and I chose her. Finally, fully, and without apology. So, if you're listening to this, maybe you're sitting in your car after another hard phone call. Maybe you're staring at a family group chat, debating whether to reply, or maybe you've been carrying stories like mine, quietly, for years. To you, I say, your story matters. And it doesn't have to end with silence or shame. Tell it, live it, own it. Let people be shocked when the quiet one draws a line. Let them gossip when you say no. Let them wonder where you found the courage. Because that's the beauty of starting over. They don't get to script it anymore. You do. If this story resonated with you, if it reminded you of a scar you've been hiding, I want to hear from you. Share your thoughts in the comments or your own story. Even if it's just one sentence, you never know who needs to read it today. And if you found strength in these words, subscribe. There's more to come. More stories about women like you, strong, complex, hurt, healing. Stories where quiet revenge isn't about rage, but about reclaiming dignity, worth, and peace. And speaking of stories, the next one, let's just say, my father drained my college savings to settle his gambling debts. I made sure he regretted it legally. You don't want to miss that one, because sometimes the best revenge is building a life so solid no one can shake it, not even the people who broke you.